Good evening, everyone. We're going to start off with a flag salute. Dawn, would you lead us in flag salute? Okay, we have a roll call.
Be conducting the roll call orally. Starting off, Commissioner Hamilton. Commissioner Hamilton is absent. Commissioner Grunsky.
Here.
Commissioner Rushtaller. Commissioner Midgley. Show that Commissioner Midgley is absent. Oh. Hold a moment and resume roll call when she gets seated. Then commencing roll call, Commissioner Midgley.
Here.
Thank you. And Commissioner Maury.
Here.
That concludes roll call.
Okay. Yep.
Chair Hamilton did call in, so it's an excused absence. No, I think we just recorded.
Okay, moving on, the minutes from hearing of 6/18/2020. Comments or a motion?
I move we approve the minutes submitted.
Got a motion and a second? Roll call? No.
Commissioner Maury. Commissioner Grunsky.
Yes.
Commissioner Midgley.
Yes.
Commissioner Rushtaller.
Yes.
And with Hamilton absent, that concludes the roll call vote.
Okay, moving on. At this time, the public is welcome to address the Planning Commission on items of interest to the public that are not listed on the agenda. Comments to the Commission are limited to a maximum of 5 minutes or 250 words for comments provided via email. Anything online or anything? Doubtful.
I'm showing no current emails and no attendees looking to speak at this time.
Okay. Moving on to the action items, consent agenda, item number 1 and 2. Items calendared for consent will be approved in one motion without a public hearing unless a member of the Planning Commission or the audience requests that the item be removed from the consent calendar and heard separately. We have a motion on the consent items.
I move we accept the consent items as presented.
We have a motion and a second.
Commissioner Rushtaller.
Yes.
Commissioner Midgley.
Yes.
Commissioner Maury.
Yes.
Commissioner Grunsky.
Yes.
Again, with Hamilton absent, that concludes roll call vote.
Okay, moving on to other business, we have a presentation of the 2020 San Joaquin County Bicycle Master Plan.
Inconvenience Director Huang.
All right, good evening. Naji Zarif, Interim Deputy Director for Engineering at San Joaquin County Public Works. Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for allowing us to come before you this evening to present our update to the countywide bicycle master plan. With me this evening is Mr. Jeff Levers, who's Associate Engineer with Public Works, who will be providing you with an overview of the efforts that we have made over the last couple years to update our current plan. Before Jeff gives this presentation, I did want to highlight that while there was a lot of data collected for this effort, ultimately the Bicycle Master Plan is a community-driven effort. We had a significant amount of public outreach that we conducted for this update. We heavily relied and actually continue to rely on the feedback that we received from the general public, from the recreational groups, interested parties and stakeholders, various advisory committees and boards, and the commissioners such as yourself. So tonight, we are here to continue that effort and receive feedback from the commission on the plan's recommendations. At the conclusion of Jeff's presentation, we do welcome any thoughts or questions that you may have. Your feedback that we received today is going to be documented and incorporated into the plan, as well as our presentation to the Board of Supervisors later this year. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Levers for the presentation.
Through the technical difficulties here.
Difficulties. Technology, it always gets you.
Thank you.
Good.
Perfect.
Right. Excellent.
Says the engineer, indeed. So as Naji said, good evening. Thanks for having us here. I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. As he said, there's a lot of data here, so we're going to do a very brief overview, but we'll be happy to take questions at the end. So what is the Bicycle Master Plan here? Our Bicycle Master Plan is it's a living, evolving document that agencies can use as a blueprint for moving forward into the planning for bicycles, to establish a network today, and to have a foundation for the future years to come. It acts as an extension of the general plan. It's a way for us to be able to have a document that can be updated more frequently than the general plan. It can react to the needs as it's identified and feedback from our constituents. So why are we doing a plan update? The last plan was completed in 2010, which was coincidentally the last time I had the privilege of addressing the Planning Commission. So once every 10 years, as I think is a pretty good record here. Over those past 10 years since I was last here, best practices have changed quite a bit. That includes ways to analyze the stress levels. There's been some new additions to the types of routes that have been included, the facilities that can be used. And also we want to continually look to make sure we're on top of safety hotspots, identify links as the cities continue to grow and build. One of our jobs is to make sure that we continue to connect our 7 cities and the multiple small unincorporated jurisdictions throughout the county. So our project timeline, we started this process in mid-2018 when we applied for a Caltrans Sustainable Communities grant. We were awarded $240,000 for this grant. We issued a request for proposals, and we awarded to Alta Planning and Design to spearhead this work in early 2019 when we began the preliminary work. Throughout the rest of 2019, we did some outreach. We did various pop-up events, from the Great Book Fest in Manteca up to one of the farmers markets in Lodi, trying to reach out and go to the public rather than the older style of having a workshop and expecting everybody countywide to come to just one location. We outlined the goals and objectives from the feedback that we got, and we started to draft recommendations. Unfortunately, as we all know, rolling into early 2020, our process was slowed down a bit due to COVID. We shifted gears a bit, and we continued to draft recommendations and moved into a virtual workshop setting, which was concluded in August when we had 2 fairly successful Zoom meetings and feedback at that point. That brings us to now. We've prepared the final draft plan. We are in the middle of a 2-week ongoing comment period. It does conclude this Sunday, at which time we will take all of the recommendations, comments, any other feedback we have, including anything that you commissioners may want to share with us, and prepare a final plan on that. So what did we learn from this process, or how did we get there? We reviewed the existing bicycle facilities, including what was in the general plan. Since our last update in 2010, we have a whole new general plan, so we had to take into account what has changed since that old 92 general plan. We looked at the existing land use that came out of that, the changing demographics. Of course, we had to look at safety. That's a top priority of all public works projects that we do. We looked at field reviews, community needs, as I said, getting out to the public. And one of those new items is we looked at levels of traffic stress, something new that planners have been using to better evaluate how comfortable is it to ride. For example, riding down Jacktone Road 55 plus miles an hour, traffic near you and farm equipment is probably going to be a little more stressful than, say, a nice quiet bike path. And that's another way to evaluate the potential facilities. So what we found out of that is we only have about 33 miles of total bicycle facilities, and they are limited. A lack of comfortable bikeways that connect to different destinations are not there. We hear a lot of, we would like to see more accessibility to schools, to libraries, to shopping. A small percentage of people bicycle to work in those other destinations, in a large part due to these restrictions. Over 90% of the people surveyed will just drive to work. They don't feel comfortable bicycling to work. Some significant barriers we heard about were such as the high-speed roadways. A lot of comments were talking about crossing busy highways, busy streets, anything from State Route 12 and 88 in Lockford through to roads like West Lane, where there's 4-lane high-speed roads. But the key three items that we had heard on our community feedback was safety. We heard about connectivity issues, and we heard about education. There's a lot of questions about what can be done to better educate everyone about bicycling, and this is both motorists and bicycles. So programs were looked at that will educate everyone about bicycling in this. So from this, we determined 5 goals. The first goal for the Bicycle Master Plan was investment in the high quality, a reduced stress, and an efficient network within the county. Second, once we start investing that, we want it to be accessible, both now today and in the future. As the cities continue to grow, as needs evolve, we want to have a fully accessible bike plan moving forward. Third, expand ridership. If we build it, we want people that will actually be using it in the future. Fourth, promote that ridership through education. As I mentioned, you'll see that's a very common theme was the education as we did our outreach. And the fifth goal was increasing the accessibility. As we develop the plan, we want to make sure that the plan is equitable. So no matter where you live in the county, what your skill level is, we want to have facilities that are equally accessible to the hardcore riders that'll get out and ride anywhere 20, 30 miles on a weekend, to the family who just wants to take their children out for a simple weekend ride. So the recommendations that came out of this, we found 6 different types of facilities that fall under these 4 broad categories. There's the Class 1 shared path, there's 2 types of Class 2, 2 types of Class 3, and 1 type of Class 4. And I'll go over each of these individually. On this, the recommendations, as you can see here, would be increasing our existing Class 1, 2, and 3 bike routes, and then creating 3 new ones. So the second section on this slide, we currently have no buffered bicycle lanes, bicycle boulevards, or the Class 4 separated bikeways. And the main reason for that is these are all new facilities that really didn't exist when we prepared our last 2010 bike plan. The full build-out result of this plan will be almost 680 miles of bicycle facilities, which I want to say was about 40%, I think, of our total unincorporated county maintained mileage. So moving forward, what are these different paths, bikeways, bike lanes, et cetera? The Class 1, this is probably your lowest stress level. This is the one that anybody who's been to Lake Tahoe, up to Yosemite National Park, you're most familiar with seeing. These are the completely separated bikeways. Sacramento has the American River Bike Trail, for example. These are comfortable for any kind of user. You don't have to worry about adjacent traffic, cars, farm equipment, those types of other issues that you get on roadway facilities. Typically, they're in their own adjacent right-of-way, such as in parks, bodies of water. There's even been Rails to Trails programs that'll take old abandoned railways and turn those into trails. So then we have Class 2. This is commonly seen in cities. It's a dedicated bike lane. It typically is designated with black and white signs. It has striped legend and a solid white line to separate the automobiles from the bicycle. That way the automobiles are made aware that that's a separate dedicated space for the bicyclist. Now, a newer item that's come off of this is the Class 2B buffered bike lanes. It's the same idea, but as you can see in this picture, instead of the single white lane, it actually adds 2 white lanes with some hatching in between. The idea is to better physically separate the automobiles and the bicyclists. One common way that this is done is on larger roads that have multiple lanes in each direction. You can remove the outsidemost lane, take a 12-foot lane and put a 4 to 6 foot wide bike lane and make that hatched area an additional 6 feet. Some jurisdictions have actually moved their on-street parking to where that hatching is, and they'll move the bicycles over to between the parked cars and the sidewalk, which gives even more of a buffer. A parked car is a great buffer between a moving vehicle and a bicyclist. Class 3, this is our most prevalent. These are the ones that are just a shared use lane. These are typical where you don't have the room to be able to have a completely dedicated bike lane. They're typically used in our rural areas, or they're used on lower facility areas. Such as residential neighborhoods where we can't fit in multiple lanes, multiple bike lanes in the narrow streets of a residential area. One policy that we have is we typically won't do what you see here on this picture in rural areas. This picture would only be for the urbanized area with low speed, 25, 30 mile an hour roads. When we do a Class 3 in rural areas, we always make sure to have at least a 4-foot paved shoulder for the safety of the bicyclists. So now another new item are the Class 3B bicycle boulevards. Really not too different from the Class 3 routes that I was just talking about, except for, as you can see here, much bigger legends. There's more signage. The idea here would be in the residential neighborhoods to draw more attention. These are ideally used around schools and parks where kids will be riding their bicycles in the street more. This is another new one. We have none today, but we're looking at several areas from Lincoln Village, Colonial Heights, those type of urbanized areas, possibly Murata and Woodbridge to be incorporating these. And last is the Class 4 separated bikeway. This is kind of a hybrid, if you will, between the Class 1 and the Class 2. It is a separated bikeway. As you can see here, this one has a raised median to separate the cars from the bicycles. The difference is this is usually done on our public roadways. Again, you can take a lane out, put this bikeway in place of that. It's easier to adopt than a Class 1 because we already have the right-of-way. We just have to find a place that it fits in without taking away from traffic. As this is a newer item, right now we're only proposing about 4 miles. This is brand new to a lot of people, so we want to see how it's going to fit before we jump in with a new facility on this case. And then last, outside of the 6 I just covered, we identified some corridors that we just couldn't quite figure out where they fit in these previous 6 slides. We broke this down into 2 parts. 3 of the items would be our Wilson Way, Waterloo Road, and Benjamin Holt Drive. All 3 of these, we decided we would like to actually go out, do more directed research. We want to go out and talk to the constituents, the business owners in these areas, find out what would work best rather than just throwing them into the plan right now. And then the other part of this is we have several Caltrans facilities County does not have jurisdiction to do anything more than recommend and work with Caltrans. They are currently undergoing a review of their facilities, so we'll be working with them ideally on all 9 of these corridors. As we move forward, update the bike plan. We'll have some outreach, some studies that'll help us better determine the correct facilities to use here. And then in addition, you heard me say a few times earlier, and we're back to that educational component. This is all about outreach and education. Education can include our bicycle safety campaigns, different wayfinding signs, walk and roll to school days, outreach such as social rides to encourage people to get out. They're fairly highly successful with several of our bike clubs throughout the county. A lot of people like to get together and bicycle in a big group. It's more comfortable, it's more enjoyable than just going out and bicycling on your own. Lodi also has been looking at a bicycling-related wine tour. So that's something that they've been looking into in conjunction with one of the Lodi bike groups. All of these are designed to educate and reach out to the bicyclists and give them more knowledge of what's available. So to evaluate these items, we identified the 7 criteria. Said it before, we'll continue to always look at safety as our #1 priority. To better determine what we need to do, we're looking at connectivity and the highest number of users. Each of those had points assigned in the evaluation criteria. We have equity and community priorities, making sure we meet the needs of the community and finding out how we're fulfilling everyone's needs to the best of our ability. And then the last 2 evaluation criteria were our feasibility and cost, and then Caltrans objectives. We can do all the rest of the planning, but if we don't have the funding, we can't build the facilities. So identifying those that are the most cost-effective to build and the ones that meet Caltrans criteria makes it easier for us to go and compete at the state level to actually receive funding in those grant categories. Implementing the plan is going to take a while. We can't go out and build 600 miles of bike facilities overnight. I've been working on the bike plan on and off since 2004, and I want to say about 2/3 of that 33 miles I said is taken about 15 years. So a couple miles a year, yeah, you can do the math. 600 miles is a lot. But things have changed quite a bit since 2010, and we're really looking at how to move forward with more bicycling. That includes flexibility in the implementation. State laws change, funding availability changes, so we need to be flexible. Working with other departments, other agencies are key. We've been working with walkability groups, with public health, working with the City of Stockton. We've just actually turned in 2 ATP, active transportation grants, to do a combined path on Alpine Avenue from I-5 over to UOP and around that crosses both city and county jurisdictions. A great thing about that is we found when you get multiple agencies together to turn in applications, the people scoring it love to see the collaboration and you tend to score better. So it benefits everybody to work better together. That's a good way for us to secure the funding and then continuing to engage county residents moving forward. In addition, we will continue at Public Works to evaluate how the performance measures set here are going to be met and continue to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our constituents and riders into the future. So what's next? Our current comment period will close this Sunday. At that point, we'll finalize the recommendations, prepare the plan for adoption by the Board of Supervisors in December, and then start implementing these projects beginning as early as next year. Like I said, if we receive some ATP funding grants, we could see bike lanes going in on Alpine Avenue as early as 2022 with the planning going in 2021. And that pretty much concludes what we have here. So I will hand it back over to Najee.
Thank you, Jeff. So as you can see, our recommended plan is ambitious, right? Going from a little over 30 miles to a recommendation of almost 680 miles. We are taking an assertive approach to try to improve the bicycling infrastructure in the unincorporated community. But at the same time, we are optimistic. I know Jeff had on there the implementations of the plan slide, and a lot of what we're looking at is trying to align ourselves with what we've seen over the last 10 years. Over the last 10 years, we have seen a much more concerted effort from the feds, the states, and local jurisdictions to focus on active transportation or just transportation that or infrastructure that supports alternative modes, so pedestrians and bicyclists. And so there's a lot more funding kind of going towards that area, and we want to align ourselves to be able to take advantage of that. So that's having a plan like we have. Also, like you said, been very creative in terms of how we strategically align with partners such as Caltrans and other cities to find projects that where you have this community support that says, okay, hey, the community wants it, the organizations are here to support that, and we're just trying to deliver what the you know the things that the community wants to see. So so we're going to be very active in terms of trying to find funding, and I joke with staff and I say, hey, we might have to have a few bake sales as well. So if you guys have some good recipes, let us know. And we are, again, currently just actively going after projects that are already recommended. Jeff mentioned the Alpine Avenue. We have a few other projects that we've just recently applied for that are in the bike plan. So, so with that, we will close this out, and we'll ask that you guys share any feedback or ask any questions that you have. We'll take those now.
An excellent presentation. Oh, go ahead, Stan.
I can understand the bike lanes and the boulevards and the bikeways and that. This may not be what you can do, but what scares me are these bikes. You don't have lights at nighttime. Very, very difficult. Page D2 here in the back is quite a concern about how many people were killed and injured. But sometimes poor people may not be able to afford a blinking tail lamp. However, everyone can afford a strip of luminous tape on the rear fender, back of the seat, fender too, as far as that goes, because so many times, not a lot of times, but occasionally I got too close to a biker because I couldn't see him. So that's a concern for me. I know the lanes are a great concern. I love the idea of having the lanes out there. It's wonderful. But I want to protect those riders, the children. It should be a law mandated. Something luminous is on the bike so we can see. Thank you.
Yeah, just to sort of pick up on that, I was going to ask about, from a safety standpoint, are there ordinances that basically say you can be out on the bike trail at certain times of the day or at night, or is it just have at it whenever you want to put the helmet on?
Are you talking trails, the bike lanes on?
Well, I would think this shared youth path,
Sure.
that's a, what, class 1?
Right. In general, if it's a public right-of-way, unless there are local ordinances or restrictions in place, that would be open at any time. But as some city parks have closed after dark, if it was in a regional park, city, county park that has that, I believe the American River Bike Trail, though, does not have any restrictions that I'm aware of. It's been a while since I've been up biking on that. So it really would be a case-to-case basis.
And another thing that I sort of, when I was thumbing through this, is the costs. I am just flabbergasted that the low estimate on a class 1 is $700,000 per mile. Am I reading that right?
Yes.
So $1 million for the high? What are you putting on those paths?
Well, that's sort of the total cost. So yeah, there's a lot of that is when you have like a class 1 facility, you have to go out and acquire that right away, right? Because it's a separate facility. So yeah, it is expensive, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your timing's good. I mean, whether I agree with it or not, with the governor talking about going electric by 2035, I gotta imagine they're going to free up some funding for projects like this to incorporate, to give things like this a shot. It's not the time, but if something like this does get built on a broad scope, I sure would like to see that. I saw yesterday, or actually rather today, probably 30 Stockton PD on bicycles over by the mall. sure hope the sheriff's department or something like that could put together a little force too, just to be visible out there, because you're talking a lot of coverage.
Oh, yeah.
And so, those are problems for down the road, but I think the timing's great. Great proposal, great work. I actually didn't know this was going on. I called John Funderburg about 2 months ago and was like, I know all these triathletes and stuff, and they're worried about the safety and blah, blah. He's like, have you seen the bicycle master plan? I was like, no, I have not. So then he gave me a link, and so very impressed, very, very, I got the concerns of safety as everyone else. I think we all do. I think we know how dangerous that can be, but I love it. So hopefully we can get some progress, more than a couple miles every,
I agree.
We'll get a steam,
Sure.
get a headwind at some point and be able to knock some of this out.
Yes.
So thank you.
And I do like the cities and towns where they have all the bike paths and there are more people on the bikes and you see more, it just seems more family, more family oriented. Funding.
Yeah, so do we.
Yes. All right.
Okay, I think that concludes, guys.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Planning Commissioner's comments. Stephen, you want to introduce?
Vice Chair Gronsky, Commissioners, Councilors, Stephen Shi, Environmental Health Department. Thank you, this opportunity to introduce our newly appointed Assistant Director within us today, Munia Paneidu.
Great. Hey, good to have you. Welcome, welcome aboard, I guess.
Thanks for these opportunities.
That's fantastic. Great to get it from within. Congratulations. Okay, if that's the end of the director, how about the director's report?
Great. Thank you, Vice Chair. David Kwong, your director. So the next meeting of November 5th will be canceled, but we will be having a little bit bigger item, just the way scheduling of items are going. So on November 19th, we will be having 5 particular items, and it's in the notes for the evening, and let me go through them briefly for you. So the first one will be for a continuance of the item that the commission's heard on September 17th. And as the revocation and modification hearing that will be brought back to the commission in regard to multiple uses there, particularly a hotel as a main use, but it does include restaurant, lounge, and banquet facilities as well. The second item will be the establishment of a distilled spirits operation at an existing winery facility. The third one will be actually another continued item from August 20th in this case, and it is, as you can see on the notes for the evening, which we will hear at night, a reduction in amount of chickens for a chicken processing facility. The fourth item will be for a quarry. I guess it's just self-explanatory. It is a quarry operation or excavation. And then finally, of course, this is a big item, and we're excited to bring this, so I'll save it for November 19th, but it will be for the special purpose plan amendment, basically for the Airport 599 project, and coming before you for a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. And that will be the end of the fifth item, but five items that night, with probably 3 of them pretty significant. Besides that, I do not have any further comments. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. It seems like a real busy night. I might be sick. That sounds like a lot of homework.
Please don't.
I think that's a lot of homework. Oh, that's right. Okay, if that's it, we're adjourned. you.